What is going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pitt Podcast, your daily podcast covering the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And, folks, boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Pitt obviously facing Miami tonight on Tuesday night. We'll talk about that. We'll preview their game and their matchup against Pitt, but we also have a lot to talk about in terms of Pitt women's basketball. Jayla Everett, the leading scorer, gets dismissed, enters the transfer portal, just reported today by Mitchell Northam of Pittsburgh Sports. Now we'll talk about that, the implications of that, and what happens moving forward with Lance White and the Pitt women's basketball program. All of it's coming up here today on Locked On Pitt.
You are Locked On Pitt, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pitt Podcast, your daily podcast covering the Pittsburgh Panthers. As always, folks, always appreciate you guys making the Locked On Pitt Podcast your first listen every day. And, folks, more over, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening to this, leave a review. Give me feedback. Always appreciate all the feedback that I get from you guys over the course of the weeks here, because can't make it better unless I hear from you guys and I try to really get this thing going. But we're here near the end of basketball season now, and things are kind of kicking into motion. But first, I really want to talk about Pitt men's basketball and their upcoming game against Miami, because this is the last three games that they have here, and it's a tough last three games. Three of the top four ACC teams right now are on this schedule. So this is a really hard schedule for Pitt to kind of manifest themselves through. It's going to be one where you look at it and it's not going to be nearly as easy as people think it is. Obviously, it really doesn't seem like they have a chance against Duke. I mean, that one is going to be a colossal game and just a colossal talent imbalance. But this game against Miami, you feel like Miami, while they're a really good team and they have some really good players, you feel like there's at least some potential for a win here for Pitt. They're Miami's a good but flawed team. They're a team that can beat any team, including a team like Duke, at any time, and we've seen that before. We've seen Miami come up and play against big time teams and win, but we've also seen them lose against teams that they probably shouldn't have. Should they have lost to Dayton? Should they have lost to UCF? But no, they've competed hard with teams like Duke, and they've won that game, and they've taken good teams. We know they've beaten Wake Forest. They've beaten a lot of these good teams. They absolutely crushed North Carolina at home. I mean, they've done a lot of good things. They've also dropped a few games that they probably shouldn't have dropped. I mean, the Virginia game got away from them. The Notre Dame game was one where they had a lot of control in that game, let it go. Obviously, these teams aren't completely on par, but losing to Florida State as well. In January, obviously that was a different Florida State team, but not ideal. But it's one where Pitt, at least if Pitt comes out, plays their best ball like they did against North Carolina, and you look at what Miami could bring out, and they lay one that is not to their standard, Pitt could pull off an upset here. And so it's not one that, again, and similar to the UNC game, certainly this is not a game that I'm going to put money down on Pitt, or certainly not going to predict them to win this game, but I think that they have the talent to strike and win this one. If their guys can really get going, and by those guys, their starting five can really have standout games, I think this is a game where, similar to what they did against UNC, if they come out, Horton has a really good game. Femi Odukali takes care of the basketball. John Hughley continues to do what John Hughley does. Mo Gee continues to do what he does. Jamaris Burton gets back to his consistent ways. You could see Pitt actually pull this one out, and they're at home. It's going to be a relatively energized team, I think, after that loss. I think this team, after their losses, they like to at least come back and really give a team their all. They've had stretches where Pitt can seem down at times, but usually after losses, they've been able to really come out in the next game, and even if they don't win, they're able to bring up sustained pressure and sustained effort, and that's been something that's always been at the very least admirable about this Pitt team. I mean, they lose close to Virginia early in December, come back, defeat Colgate. I mean, they have a two really tough losses, then come back, beat Boston College, lose hard to Syracuse, come back, beat Louisville, give Virginia a tough game, get crushed against Clemson 27, come back, beat Syracuse, lose again. And then they gave, it wasn't a pretty game. I think the 2 game stretch, really the 4 game stretch between BC and Virginia Tech was troubling, but then they had the 3 game win streak. Now they have a loss to Georgia Tech. But this is kind of where Pitt now has to get things back into gear. And this is not going to be an easy game for them because Miami's good. And Miami has a few guys. Obviously, the two that will come to mind for you are Isaiah Wong and Cam McGusty. And those 2 guys are really good players. Now, Wong is an interesting type of guard because he's not a guy that shoots the three at a high rate or an efficient rate, I should say, because he can make that. But he's also not going to be one where you look at him and you probably want him taking a ton of those shots. Again, you know, shooting only 30% from downtown. That's not his shot this year. He's been really efficient, though, on those drives. He's a great athlete. He does a great job at finishing at the rim. He gets a lot of free throws and fouls called. He's very efficient in transition. This entire team, and what scares me about this team specifically for Pitt, is that this team really pushes the pace and they will come out and punch you in the mouth. And so when you look at someone like a Cam McGusty or an Isaiah Wong, they will come out and push that pace. And McGusty himself is probably in that convo. He's probably not going to win the ACC of the year, but he's the type of guy that has pushed himself into that convo, that top 4, top 3-ish area of that conversation. And so that there are a lot of talented guys on here, the guys that like to run, get in transition, work and up tempo, and they shoot the three as a team fine. While Wong is a guy that's more of a driver and can shoot the mid-range game, he's a very good mid-range jumper shooter, which keeps him off guard. If you look at him, he's a pretty much a more athletic, refined version of what Jamarius Burton is, in a lot of ways. And so they have a lot of good players. Charlie Moore, obviously, as well, is a really solid player. So they have a really good all-around team. The backcourt in particular is really quite good for this team. And those guards, those bigger guards, those guards that can drive have proven to be trouble for Pitt this year. And so it's not a great matchup in that regard. And also, they love to run. They're aggressive defensively. They force a lot of turnovers. This is a Miami team that really gets after you. So if you don't take care of the basketball, I mean, you are going to pay the price. And that's the big thing here. And it's really what's gotten them in a lot of areas. They lead the ACC in fast break points per game. This is a team that not only allows themselves to get a lot of turnovers, they also don't turn over the ball much. Lowest turnover ratio, assist to turnover ratio in the ACC, the fewest turnovers per game in the ACC. The turnover margin is over +4 right now. I mean, they have the 3rd most forced turnovers per game in the ACC. They do a really good job of maximizing their potential defensively to turn that into offense, but they also do a really good job of doing it the other way, where they don't really allow the other team to get a hold or a grip on them and really allow them to entrench themselves offensively. They run what they want to run. They're pretty efficient in doing it. If they lose, this is a team that just doesn't end up shooting well or kind of shoots themselves in the foot at times. Because moreover, while they are efficient and they drive, at times what happens with these guys is they'll take bad shots. The rebounds is a big issue for them. They are not a good rebounding team, so maybe this is where Pitt's bigs can come in and clean up things. Offensive rebounds overall, second fewest in the ACC this year. This is a team that lets the three go up against them a lot as well, and that's where they can get caught. So there's things where you look at where Pitt can make inroads against Miami, and we'll continue to talk about that a little bit. But first, folks, let me let you know about BetOnline, because football might be over for this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And folks, it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds for this season. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast as we continue to talk here about Pitt versus Miami and previewing that matchup a little bit and kind of what Pitt can do. And we're just talking this from a strictly X's and O's standpoint more so. I mean, the standout in stats, I think, favors Miami, obviously. The turnover, especially, how efficient they are and the margin for error. They just take care of the basketball. They really have a good screen game. They're able to drive. They're able to get the three going a decent amount. I mean, they're not a sharp shooting team, but they can shoot it a little bit. But they do a really good job of ball movement, and they really allow themselves to play mistake-free basketball. And they're a very good coach. So Jim Larinaga doing a great job down there in Coral Gables, allowing his team to play at such a overall high level and a clean level at that. And I've always really appreciated that about their game when I've watched them this year. But when they've gotten in trouble, it has been that 3-point shot. It has been the rebounds that have really gotten them. And it's been their Achilles heel. You know, the front court, I'm not going to say it's bad, but it also isn't as stellar as you would love it to be because you can be beat on the boards pretty easily. And this has been essentially the Achilles heel of this team, right? I mean, Virginia came in to this team's house, and the rebounds for Miami at times just killed them. I mean, Miami just did not have the right recipe. The offensive rebounds, they had 8 offensive boards for Virginia when you look at them, but overall they were timely boards for UVA. Felt like when you needed that, it didn't come up into fruition when you needed it, and the boards were an issue. The 3-point shooting is an issue. I mean, this is a team that can really allow guys to get hot. So this is an issue for Miami, and this is a time where when you look at what Miami weaknesses are, I think you absolutely have to look at Ithiel Horton because Ithiel Horton, if he can get going in this game, things can be all off because while again, I think Miami can shoot the three a little bit, they aren't great at shooting the three. So if Pitt can get their hottest 3-point shooter going, and Theo Horton has a really good game here, an efficient game that draws the guys out, forces them to really look at him, and then it opens up things for Gee, it opens up the drive lanes for Burton and O'Calley, it opens up things down low on the block for Hughley. You can see kind of where this winning formula can come from. It's going to take a really good performance overall by this team to really pull out that win, but it's possible. And I think you look at it and you say, okay, this is where they can do that. And so I look at overall what the Canes have. It's a good team. Charlie Moore's a good player. They have really good backcourt play. They're a fast-paced team. They're a very clean team. This is a team that plays well. But here's the thing. This is a team that plays a lot of nail biters. They are battle tested at all levels, and they really do at times get into themselves a little bit too much on the defensive end. And again, there's that aggressive style, but it can also hurt them. If they run press, if they run an aggressive man to man, this is a team that can get beat, and it's not really one that you love to see because they can get beat going under screens. They can get beat to the corner by a spot up shooter. They can get beat by a lot of these different teams, and these teams kind of spot up the 3-point shooter. And Pitt's not a great 3-point shooting team, but they have a guy like Theo Horton, and I think that's going to have to be the highlight for the Canes. They're going to have to slow down Theo Horton because if they can do that, I think they have a really good chance of winning this game and winning it pretty convincingly. But the team should, at this point for Pitt, if they're going to come out, they're going to have to play good basketball. They're going to have to play really good defense. Moreover, than just good defense, this team's gonna have to work themselves through the through more than just the motions, right? They can't just go out there and run and act like it's all diddly squat good. This is a talented Canes team. They will run you out of the building if Pitt doesn't come to play. They've played a lot of close games, so has Pitt. So these are two really battle tested teams. But Miami, obviously, the more talented version of the team and the deeper version of Pitt, right? So Pitt, if they're going to win, yes, they're probably going to need a little bit of Noah Collier, a little bit of Will Jeffress. You would ideally get that in this game. But also, Pitt's going to have to work defensively, close out on threes, not allow the guards to get by them and blow right past them from the perimeter. They're not going to have to allow easy entry passes, right? There's just a lot that has to go right for Pitt. There was a lot that had to go right for Pitt to beat UNC too. So really, Pitt is a team that's going to have to look at themselves in this game, and they have a clear formula. They really are. This is a team with Miami that is great offensively. They push the pace. They score a lot. They're highly efficient. They don't turn the ball over, but they lack perimeter defense. Down low, they're going to lack guys to match Gee and Hughley. And also, they're going to sometimes get beat on the boards. And Pitt has guys that can really win on the boards against UVA. So this is going to be a team that if it's going to win, they're going to need guys like John Hughley to step up big. They're going to need continued contributions from the guards, especially guys like Femi Odukali getting tough boards, right? So there is a recipe for Pitt to win here, and Pitt has talent, and we've talked about how hard this team is to predict because they're talented at that. So it's not crazy to think Pitt wins this game, but also it's not one that you should bet on. So this Pitt team continues to kind of mystify, and you wonder what the heck's going on here. They're a talented team, they're a talented five, but overall they're not deep enough, and there's obviously issues that they face. And the aggressive defense of Miami could be a problem as well. But if Pitt can figure out how to play discipline versus that and come out here with a solid game plan, I think there's a chance they can win this one. But again, really talented team that Miami's bringing into town. I really like a lot of their guys. I really like their backcourt. They're a really good scoring team. I think this is a team that's going to make the NCAA tournament as long as they don't really crush themselves down the stretch, and I don't think they will. So this is going to be a tough game for Pitt, but this one is one that is winnable, and it's one I think that if they won, I think I would be surprised, but it's not like I would be colored shocked and taken aback. I think there is a recipe here for Pitt to pull off an upset, but not a likely one at that. All right, folks, we'll get to the women's hoop side of this thing, but let me let you know first about Rock Auto, because with the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. So save time and money when using Rock Auto. You don't have to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts at a chain store or car dealership, because Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and there's prices that are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you want, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet, and more. So go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast as we continue to talk here today. This one more so coming, and I guess this one in terms of the women's basketball program is one that is really shocking. I know we had seen Jayla Everett not play in some games this year. It's been kind of mystifying at times where she doesn't travel with the team. Like she didn't travel to the Virgin Islands with them, although I heard that one was COVID. There was times other than this where she would just sit out, and it was cited as a coach's decision. It was cited as something like different in terms of what it's not like she was hurt. It's not like it was performance. It was different. And I always found this to be curious. But then we got the news that she was dismissed out from the program outright. And that, folks, was very surprising. Jayla Everett getting dismissed straight up outright. Their leading scorer, their senior leader getting out of it, it's not good. And so there was no justification provided, nothing. But it was really, really bad. And so I'll say this: when you look at Lance's tenure, yes, he's actually won more games this year than he ever has with Pitt. And I get it. They have some really talented players here. They truly do. I mean, they have some players that when you look at them, actually really do pop off and say, okay, they are good players. I like Dacian at Harris. I like what they have in Rita Ibakwe. I like what Malia Johnson has shown as a freshman. There have been good things I've seen from Amber Brown. There have been good things I've seen from everyone on that team that has played. Liatu King, I think, is criminally underrated and doesn't get nearly enough playing time from this staff. I mean, if I were them, she would be a perennial starter, and every time she's been put in that lineup, she has come out and played at a pretty high level. But more importantly, I always look at kind of the ecosystem around this program. And while I think it's a good one in Lance White's obviously a great coach in terms of assistant, and I think leadership qualities, I think he has those. I don't think he necessarily has the complete assembled staff and himself to coach this team to their maximum potential. Because again, we've seen a player like Dacian Harris, for example, who came in as a freshman, lit it up, hasn't really progressed a lot, and some of that can be attributed to obviously the knee injuries that she has suffered. 2 knee injuries, actually, she has suffered over her time at Pitt. But it's, the lack of improvement for someone like Amy Hayford or Reedy Bockley is essentially the same player, and Brown's never really developed a consistent jumper. I mean, there's a lot there, and it seems like a lot of their offense has always been disjointed, and they still play this kind of ruckus style of basketball where they turn the ball over a lot at an ACC worst rate. So they need a lot of coaching and an emphasis on just fundamentals, but it feels like they've needed that ever since he's come, and that's been the issue. The issue at hand has never been what they actually put out and put in these recruiting classes. I mean, they have a solid recruiting class incoming, right? It's not like the recruiting class incoming is complete trash. They do have a fine recruiting class, and they continue to draw talent, which is something to note. But this team doesn't seem to be able to maximize it, and they're deeper than a team like the men are, for example. And they have won double more games than they have ever won under Lance Way, and that's a good thing. But only 2 conference wins, and it's not like they're losing to great teams. I mean, they're losing to Virginia, who's really bad. They're blowing games late to Syracuse when they should be winning that game late. They are blowing games that they should be winning. And you can talk about what they should be winning and what they should be beating teams like NC State. I get that. Louisville's going to come. They probably won't win that game. I get that. North Carolina, I get it. Notre Dame, even. They were competitive with them and being competitive with a ranked Texas A&M team. Like, they've shown signs of life, but nothing has matriculated itself yet. And this is a tough rebuild. This women's basketball program has not been good in a while. Lance White walked into a very tough situation. So the fact that he's even acquiring talent still, I find is impressive. The question is he ever going to put this thing into actual motion? Are we actually going to see basketball fundamentals improve? Are we going to see these players develop and take leaps over time? And that's been the issue for me. If he was acquiring talent, developing them, and this team was continuing to take the steps forward, I think I could really give him a vote of confidence. But I haven't been able to do it, and losing Jayla Everett is kind of one of those symptoms. You lose a scorer that has not had the season she thought she would. She's been a high volume shooter, but a very low efficiency shooter at that. She's appeared disjointed and out of the team for most of the season when she's actually been in there. And so, what was going on there? I don't know if she broke team rules. I don't know if they both just agreed it wasn't the right fit, so they let her go in the portal early. I don't know what happened. But the more important thing to know here is that this team has not meshed. This team has not shown the fundamentals improve over time. This team has not shown to be a well-coached team consistently. And while they have talent, I think they consistently underachieve their talent. This is not a two-win ACC team. This team has more talent than that. And that's the thing. They're underachieving to their talent. And because of that, I have worries for Lance White and how this tenure is working out. Again, I think he's in the kind of the same boat as Jeff Capel. I don't think they're going to fire him or anything like that. But he's coming into this his years here, maybe next year, along with Jeff Capel, where he's got this referendum coming in on him, and it's going to be decided: can you take that leap? Can you show us something? He's different from Capel because while Capel has to worry about everyone transferring and everything, it feels like the culture around Lance White's program is great and the players love playing for him. And he's going to continue to acquire talent. So the talent's going to be there. The question is, can he coach his team to the ability that they have? That's going to be the question for Lance White. And so if he can do that next year, they take another leap, great. And it's been a tough rebuild. I know it is. It's a very tough rebuild to get this one right. Pitt women's basketball is not a program that has a lot to sell, even in historical terms. But this is a program that needs to pick it up, and it's a program that can continue to improve. We'll see if Lance White can do it. The talent level has, but so far the results have not. All right, folks. As tomorrow, we will obviously talk about the outcome of the Pitt men's basketball game as they will face Miami, and we will talk about that, all that comes out of it, and more, and anything else that might come out of tomorrow, we'll discuss as well. So, folks, always, as thanks for listening, and as always, as we ended off, hail to Pitt.